Welcome to the Powerlifting and Power Ballads podcast, where we bring you a weekly dose of powerlifting news, tips, and training advice with a touch of 80s rock ballads. This podcast is presented by Team Rohr Powerlifting, your source of the most comprehensive coaching and meet day preparation. Here are your hosts, Josh Rohr and Lara Sturm.
Welcome to episode 121. Wow, Josh, 121 episodes.
Yeah, we must really not have any lives.
Nothing else to do. So what's going on in the powerlifting world?
So Joe sent me a message, Joe House, after we talked about his meet last week, and I talked about how he ended up going up to go for the state record deadlift. That was actually the national record deadlift, apparently, for USPA. So he broke that. No, it wasn't the state record. So I stand corrected. I apologize for short-changing you on the accolades there, but that was a national record that Joe broke. So, nice. Yeah. So, yes. So that was a national record, not a state record. So sorry, Joe. I apologize. But either way, proud of you, man.
So, Josh, it's Christmas time.
It's Christmas time in the city.
No singing.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. It is. So I was thinking about this. What are some of the top gifts that you have gotten in your lifetime? We'll go top 3. How about that?
Top 3. So my number 3 would be a 10-speed bike I got when I was like 10 or 11. And I just drove the hell out of it for the next, till I got a car, which was amazing. I loved my 10-speed bike. Number 2 present was the Barbie. I got this opera house when I was like 4. And the bad part is it was what my sister asked for. And really all I cared about was that when I opened it was a huge box and it looked so epic. And I actually have a picture of this moment where I was just like, oh, it's big and pink and beautiful. And I'm so excited. And my sister's looking at me like, motherfucker, that was what I asked for. And I have this picture. My sister framed it and gave it to me, which is amazing.
So is that your number 1 present then?
Now? That was my number 2.
The picture that your sister framed of that.
Well, no, because my number 1 present has to be my daughter's arrival, because she was due the day after Christmas. So I was like, oh, this is the best Christmas gift ever. Except it ended up being a day after New Year's present. So she was late, but I'd still have to say my daughter was the best one.
Well, that's a good answer. I guess I can't argue.
You can't.
Well, you sure the bike wasn't better?
Well, we had a rough year or 2 with teenage years. So yeah, maybe the bike was better. No, definitely
Amanda,
not.
if you're listening, we're just kidding.
Yes. She's still my number 1.
Gotcha.
So Josh, what were yours?
Yeah, so mine, I think my number 3, I got a radio controlled truck when I was like, I don't know, 6, 7, 8, somewhere in there, from my grandma and grandpa. And my parents still have it at their house and it still works.
No way.
Yeah. But I used to, and this thing was little. It was only like, I don't know, like a foot long, maybe like 6 inches high. It wasn't real big, but the thing had some power, man. I used to hook it to my radio flyer wagon and sit in the wagon and pull myself around the farm with this little truck.
Wow. That's really cool.
It only went on the sidewalk. It didn't go like off-roading. So like we had a pretty long sidewalk like around the barn and stuff. So I used to ride that around, but the problem is it didn't have, it would slowly get you moving. So it was like if you're going to push a real truck in the parking lot, like you don't just go from 0 to 60 right away, right? You got to start pushing and it slowly starts moving. Well, that's what happened with this thing. Like, it would slowly start moving and it'd pick up speed. The downside was the thing couldn't stop you when you got going. So you had to pretty much bail if you got like to the end. So that was kind of fun. So that was my number 3. My number 2 was probably in my 20s, somewhere in there. Another radio controlled gadget. It was a little mini helicopter, but my grandma and grandpa got these again, but they got them for myself, my cousin, my brother, and my grandpa. So we had 4 of them. So of course we were flying them around the living room, racing them like, and everybody else is just like trying to dodge us the whole time. So we enjoyed ourselves. Everybody else was very annoyed, but I still have that helicopter as well. The number one for me would be a 10-speed bike. I was somewhere around 10. I don't know when I got that. And it was brought by Santa. And I still don't know how it happened because there was a note. So there's a present that I opened. It just had a note that said, it's there's a surprise in your room. Well, I literally came down from my room to open presents and then opened that. And then when I went back upstairs, there's a 10-speed bike sitting in right next to my bed. And I still to this day cannot figure out how that transpired because there was no in between time. Like I literally got out of bed, came straight down, we opened presents, and one of them said, "Go upstairs to your room for a surprise." I did, and it was sitting there.
Was one of your parents lurking outside your room as you were leaving?
You mean looking for Santa?
Yes. Yes.
I'm not sure what you're trying to imply there. But anyway, so no, they weren't. I legit don't know how. I don't know how that happened. So that's the reason I still believe in Santa Claus. That's the only logical it's the only logical explanation I can come up with.
The magic of Christmas right there.
Yep. So that's my number one.
Yeah. So we have a multiple choice question next for our listeners. C. Wait, because the answer is always C.
Yeah. Well, they say statistically it's C more times than anything else. So if you don't know, you truly don't know, the odds are in your favor to go for C. But I feel like test takers or test writers know this,
that.
So they would start deviating from that. But I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry.
True story.
Just like normal, I derail this whole podcast. Go ahead.
Yeah, the awkward conversations. So last week we were talking about, things that powerlifters should be able to do, and some different variations to include in training and such. And this is a little takeover from last week. So here it is: all powerlifters, or those who are training for strength, should be able to. Here's the choices: A, perform 5 push-ups. B, sit in the bottom of a squat for 5+ minutes. C, push knees out past toes while squatting. D, all of the above, ? E, anything else?
This is an odd question to me because I can make an argument
for or against all of them, probably.
Yes.
So it's really a discussion point. How's that? It's not really a question.
So I think all of these would be benchmarks. I don't like the wording of should be able to, because I think if you're a person that's never worked out before and you look at these and you're like, I can't do any of those, I guess I shouldn't be lifting weights. That would be my argument for not agreeing with any of these. Now, I think they are a very good minimum standard that I think people should shoot for. So I would say maybe we should say that we should all strive to be able to do these things, but to say that all powerlifters should be able to, I think can be a deterrent, because I know a lot of powerlifters that can't do. Actually, I know some powerlifters that can't do any of those.
Josh. Yeah, sorry. I know you're at 3 push-ups. It's okay.
I'm getting there.
Yeah. All right. So that's a good point. Striving to be able to do these things is probably a good idea. So why do you think it's important to be able to do push-ups?
It's a strength to body weight ratio. So I think no matter what your goal as a powerlifter, if you're trying to get stronger, it's always good to be stronger pound for pound. So I think it's a good benchmark to shoot for. What was the question? I don't even know what the question was there.
Why should someone be able to do push-ups as a
Oh,
powerlifter?
well, I mean, yeah,
Basic,
bench is one of the power lifts. So I think 5
right?
push-ups is a good benchmark to, have a baseline for your bench press too.
Right. Do you think powerlifters should be able to sit at the bottom of a squat for an amount of time?
For 5 minutes, I don't think so. What's the reason? I guess is it a strength mark, or is it a being mobile enough to be able to sit in that position? Because anything 5 minutes to me is like, I don't care about that.
Because it's not powerlifting
Yeah.
enough. Yeah. I think it's more of a mobility thing. And a long hold like that does start to call on strength in a weird way. And I have seen some people recommend like being able to sit at the bottom of a squat for 10 minutes. And I can sit at the bottom of a squat for 5 minutes. After 10 minutes, my ADHD kind of kicks in at some point, and I'm like, no.
I think B and C go together on this one because
Both of them are mobility. Yes. So
yeah,
C being pushing knees out past the toes while squatting.
yeah, I think if you can't do that, then you're not going to be able to relax in the bottom. So I'm assuming that when you say sit in the bottom of a squat for 5 minutes, it's basically just like relax, sit in the bottom. Is that what you're meaning? Or are you meaning
Yeah.
like a wall
Yeah.
sit where you're
No,
staying at 90 degrees and holding?
no. Breaking parallel, sitting deep, hanging out
Yeah.
at the bottom of a squat.
Yeah. So I put B and C together then. So if you can, I think you should be able to hold that for 5 minutes if you're able to push your toes past your knees. Wait, push your knees past your toes.
Yes.
Then you should be able to, yeah, mechanically, you should be able to stay down there for 5 minutes or so. But if you
Yeah.
can't do that, then it's going to be a situation where you're actually probably not going to be able to bottom out your squat because you're mechanically just can't do that. So it's going to be essentially holding that right at parallel or just below parallel position, which is a lot of tension to be maintaining instead of being able to just relax and sit. So that's where I
Right.
would say it'd probably be much harder for somebody that can't do that.
Absolutely. So why don't we unpack a little bit the pushing the knees out past the toes while squatting? Just that by itself. I have seen powerlifters who think that they have a problem with their hips because they can't get down below parallel without going super wide. So they end up adjusting their stance to go wide to get down, but then finding that that's not very comfortable, but fighting that bottom position a lot. And then oftentimes we have found out that it was really the lack of mobility in their ankles.
Yeah.
So agree, disagree? What do you think about ankle mobility?
Yeah, I agree. I think a lot of squat issues come from the ankles, and so squat issues, but I think also a lot of the mechanics that you see are a direct result of, I guess, where they have to go
Mm-hmm.
in the short term at least. And a lot of times that ends up being their long-term solution instead of working on some of
Mm-hmm.
those things, which
Right.
in itself, I guess I don't necessarily even have a problem with that as long as like you understand that you got to that technique because of this, and if it works for you and the ankle mobility doesn't become an issue with any other aspects of your life, then I guess you can technically get by like that. But I think put it this way, increasing your ankle mobility is never going to be a problem. It's never going to hurt you.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah. And it can help with depth for sure.
yeah, for sure. Again, going back to that technique thing. So, the super wide stance and, the squatters you see that are, kind of more bent over, even if they have closer stance, that's a lot of times because of ankle mobility or lack thereof. And, people that are, having trouble hitting depth, or they're always like riding that line. A lot of times, if you just kind of look at them and break it down and you see that they are kind of leaning over further, sitting back further with their hips, and then you trace that all the way down and you look at the angle of their ankle and it's like, okay, well, they just have learned to squat that way and never knew any better, or B, they learned to squat around their limitations and that's just what they came up with.
Yep. Well, there was there's a part of a mobility screen that we used to do where we would, plant your heel down and then try to push your knee out in front of your foot, and just kind of measuring how far out in front of your foot you could actually get with your knee. And we identified a lot of like squat issues with that, and people that didn't even realize that it was squat issues. So after that, we kind of started including that in a lot of our screenings. And since then, I've just seen a lot of posts about ankle mobility. And there was this really great post from Squat University that talked about ankle mobility, but then it also talked about he kind of had different body types and how differently they squat, like people with short femurs but long calves, how that's going to affect their squat. And he had like this little dummy that he kind of just arranged different body mechanics and showed how differently they squat. And it was super interesting.
That was like a little steel skeleton type looking thing. Is that what it was? Yeah. I saw that. I didn't know who did that. I saw that a while back too. Yeah, that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that was really good. And it just made so much sense. He was talking about the person with, short torso, short femurs is like, oh, I don't know why everyone hates squats. They're awesome for me. And then the people with long femurs and short torso was like the opposite, that they were just hating squat day every day. And body mechanics are body mechanics, but you have to evaluate where you are and then, keep training. Same thing with ankle mobility. So anything else a power lifter should like at a minimum strive for?
Honestly, like even these things, like I think they're good measures of, like we said, mobility, base level strength to body weight ratio, things like that. But I don't know if we're talking just a power lifter, then really the only thing I really focus on is being able to execute the lift to the standards in a mechanically advantageous position. So if that, and I'll be honest, there's lifters on our team that I don't think can do any of these, but it's not the weak link of their ability to compete and be strong because of how they're built. So if we had somebody, for example, that, we'll just use the squat example, if they can't get their toes past their knees, but they have a, really, really long torso or really short torso, really long legs, for example, then that's going to be an issue for them unless they have like a sumo stance squat. So that would be a situation where, okay, then we need to make sure we address that. So again, I don't have a problem with this being, I guess I don't like it being something that everybody should be able to do. I think it's something that everybody in an ideal world would strive to be able to do, but don't use that as a reason not to start doing things because you can't do these, I guess. And for some people, like they may never be able to do these things and still can compete in powerlifting at a high level. And I think that's okay too.
I know of a squatter on our team that I was shocked to discover the range of mobility. I was like, wow, you actually can squat, but you have no ankle mobility. And it wasn't you.
So the funny thing about me, you were joking about me earlier. I actually have really, really, really good ankle mobility, but I have issues with my hip mobility and getting depth and things sometimes. And it's not my ankles, surprisingly.
All right. That'd be nice to identify and just fix, right? But
yeah,
no,
right.
It's more complex than that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's still requires work and fixing it, which is my problem, So I don't know. Did that answer your question or not?
And this was just
avoided it, sidestepped it.
Conversation to start shit while we're, talking about powerlifting.
Yep.
It's all a conversation. So our powerlifting situation this week. So you're just getting over being sick. Should you adjust your training at all? And if so, how?
Yeah, I think where a lot of people mess up is they start to feel better and go back into the gym and they go balls to the wall and everything, feels a little heavy, but they push through and kind of get everything. And then boom, they start to feel really bad again, or they just like kind of tank because of their recovery. Your body's not, as you're coming back from being sick, your body's not as healthy as it once was. So I think you need to preemptively be careful about how quick and how aggressive you jump back into training. I think you should still train. I think absolutely. I think you should still, if you can go to the gym or get a little workout in, do it. And that workout may be, getting out of bed, walking a lap around the house and going back to bed. I mean, it's all relative to how you're feeling, but I think anytime you're getting over being sick, like absolutely adjust, probably if you're doing an RPE system, training system, probably drop an RPE or two on your training main lifts. And, you know, but that's also relative to how strong you are that day. So that doesn't mean, 225 is normally a 9 RPE. So I'm going to, drop to a 7 RPE, which would be maybe, 210 or something like that. Well, that 210 might actually end up being a 9 for you that day. So you need to actually drop to a 7 based on 210 being a 9. So it's not just dropping the RPE to be able to do the correct weight at the correct RPE. It's actually backing off on both of those, I think, is usually the way to go, just to ease yourself back in. And I think that's where a lot of people, I think, mess up too, is like, normally they would do 225 for a 9 RPE. Well, all right, I'll just come in and I'll do 210, and it ends up being a 9 RPE. Well, yeah, you did the protocol, but that 9 is probably not what should have been programmed for a post being sick training session. So either talk to your coach about it and adjust it, or what I usually tell people is just anytime that happens, just I'm giving you I give people the green light ahead of time. Like if that is ever the situation, go ahead and like cut 1 or 2 sets of your working sets out and adjust your estimated 1 rep max based on being sick, and then drop 2 RPEs on your main lifts and roll with that. If you're not able to get in touch with me before you train, just as a default, just so you're not overdoing it. I'd rather you underdo it coming back from being sick than overdo it, because that's a good way to, really delay getting back to 100%.
Yeah. And hey, it's cold and flu season. It's real.
Yeah, it's real. And at the end of the day, you got to look at the bigger picture. Like even if you just think about it logically, what is the long-term benefit of even going to, if you had programmed a 9 RPE, even going to a 9 RPE right after you're sick and the weights are lower than they should be? I mean, it's going to do, for a lot of people, it's going to do 2 things. It's going to, one, make them feel like they're really weak because they really struggled with a 9 RPE that's a lot lower than what they had planned to do previously, which is probably half the people. And then the other side of it is, just the continued stress the nervous system is going to be under, trying to recover from that additional stress load after just trying to get rid of whatever sickness you had. So you're basically just like asking to get sick again right away, or just be in a severe fatigue state for another week or so, just because you zapped yourself so hard. So either way is not a good situation. So I would say just go conservative.
Definitely adjust.
Yep, definitely adjust.
Yeah, I would agree. Don't get sick.
Don't get sick. Yeah, that's a simple solution. Just don't get sick.
Yeah, just don't get sick. It's fine.
And the other side of it too, like even now, like holidays are coming up. Like a lot of people are off work, so in theory, they are going to be less stressed. But let's be honest, you're getting together with family, you might be seeing like in-laws. That can be stressful, and sometimes that ends up being the start of where people start to get sick, and you're probably not eating as well. A lot of people go off their normal diet. So, I mean, there's just a lot of factors that can sneak up on you. And, I'm not wishing anybody get sick, right? But if you do, be smart about it. Don't just like jump back in and pretend that you're not, because that's just going to make it worse.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've had those places where I'm just like, man, I just don't feel great. Am I sick or am I not sick? I don't know. If you have to wonder if you are, you probably are.
And even if you're, but even if you're not, that is telling you, your body is telling you that, hey, I'm at the breaking point here of like being overtrained or whatever. So whether you're actually sick or not, if you're feeling that way, like that's your body saying,
Right.
hey, dumbass, like Listen to me.
Slow down. Listen
Yeah.
for once.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not that I've ever trained when I was sick.
Oh yeah. I mean, I think we've all done it. That's the
Yeah.
thing. Looking back, like I can say this more confidently now because I've done all the dumb shit. I mean, I've trained when I was sick. I've donated blood and then gone and squatted like an hour later and passed out on the floor. Like, I mean, I've done all kinds of stupid stuff, but you know, it's more of those like, you know, learn from my stupid mistakes, I guess.
Oh.
And
I think we need another top 5 list, like stupid things that Josh has done.
never ever, what is that? Never ever have I ever, or something like that.
Yes, right. Never ever. Yeah. Identify these, which ones here on this list you've not done. And it's all of them, actually. So,
Yeah.
okay.
That's all a big trick question.
Good job.
Good job. Well, I think that is pretty much it. Definitely hope everybody has happy holidays, enjoys their time with friends and family. And I guess,
For sure.
Are we going to be back? Wait, what? Yeah, we'll be back one more time before the new year, right?
I believe so. Yeah.
Okay. Well, just in case we're not, happy new year to everybody as well.
Yes. Happy New Year. Howdy ho.
Howdy ho.
And you got to watch that South Park episode.
Yeah, I didn't watch the episode, but I Googled it and saw like the little clip of it on YouTube.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mr. Hanky, the Christmas poo, and he writes Noel and, you know, in poop on the mirror. It's great.
Something. Yeah.
Merry Christmas, Josh.
All right. Merry Christmas, Lara.
Merry Christmas to all our listeners.
Yep. Merry Christmas, everybody. We will see you guys next time. Later.
Bye now.
Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed today's episode of the Powerlifting and Power Ballads podcast, please remember to subscribe and share it with your friends.